It was a calm, ordinary night in March 2014. At Kuala Lumpur International Airport, operations were proceeding exactly as scheduled. Passengers boarded Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. The aircraft at the gate was a Boeing 777, a workhorse of international travel with a stellar safety record. The scheduled route would take them north across the Gulf of Thailand and overland to Beijing. On board were 239 passengers and crew, settling in for a standard 6-hour red-eye flight. Takeoff went smoothly. As the plane climbed into the night sky, the pilots checked in with air traffic control, confirming their altitude and heading without a single hint of trouble. Every data point, every system check, and every radio call matched the parameters of thousands of safe flights taking off around the world that same day. That absolute lack of warning makes the subsequent disappearance so difficult to comprehend. Less than an hour into the journey, the flight approached the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace. The cockpit delivered a calm, final sign-off. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Minutes later, the aircraft's transponder stopped broadcasting. The flight disappeared from the digital screens used by civilian air traffic controllers to track commercial routes. The pilots never broadcast a mayday call. The plane's automated systems sent no maintenance alerts, and no emergency squawk codes reached the ground. The silence was absolute. Rather than a gradual drift, military radar recorded sharp, tactical maneuvers. The aircraft banked hard, reversing course toward the Malay Peninsula. It crossed back over land following established aviation waypoints, invisible navigation corridors through the sky used to stay on course. The precision required to hit these specific waypoints proves this wasn't a random event or a plane flying on autopilot after a disaster. It suggests the aircraft remained under human control throughout this undetected journey. Hours later in Beijing, relatives gathered at the international terminal. They waited by the arrival boards, expecting to greet their family members, colleagues, and friends. The scheduled landing time passed. Announcements of a delay gave way to confusion, and soon international news networks began broadcasting the chilling reality. A modern jumbo jet had vanished. A vast coalition of nations immediately mobilized. Search planes and vessels scoured the Gulf of Thailand and the South China Sea, hunting for any trace of wreckage or survivors. Despite deploying vast military and civilian assets, they found nothing. The failure to locate a 300,000-pound machine exposed a gaping hole in global aviation oversight. Investigators soon uncovered a hidden trail of data. Even though the transponder was off, an automated terminal on the plane continued to attempt hourly, silent electronic handshakes with an orbiting satellite. This data mapping shows how engineers calculated a series of expanding rings based on those satellite pings. The results formed a long, curved flight corridor, extending thousands of miles straight down into the southern hemisphere. The search grid was relocated to the southern Indian Ocean. Ships faced towering swells and freezing gale-force winds in waters reaching nearly 3 miles deep, far from any shipping lanes or land masses. The ocean yielded nothing until 16 months later, when a piece of torn metal washed ashore on the beaches of Reunion Island off the coast of Africa. Investigators analyzed the internal serial numbers on this aircraft wing part, known as a flaperon. They definitively matched it to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. This single piece of evidence confirmed that the aircraft had met a violent end at sea. Yet it offered zero explanation as to what drove the plane thousands of miles off course. A handful of additional fragments eventually surfaced along various coastlines. But without the main fuselage or the flight deck, physical forensics could only go so far. In the absence of hard evidence, experts and the public proposed numerous scenarios. Hypotheses ranged from a slow, incapacitating depressurization event to a deliberate, calculated diversion by someone in the cockpit. The only way to differentiate between a mechanical failure and human intervention is the data locked inside the aircraft's black boxes. Specialized submersibles spent years scanning the ocean floor with high-resolution sonar. They never detected the wreckage before the limited batteries on the recorder's acoustic beacons expired. Without the cockpit voice recordings and thousands of logged mechanical parameters, investigators cannot definitely prove what occurred. The physical search ended. leaving a maze of circumstantial theories. The disappearance prompted immediate regulatory changes. The aviation industry implemented strict new standards, requiring passenger planes to transmit their location to satellites at minimum every 15 minutes. But these technological safety nets offer little comfort to the relatives. Psychologists describe their condition as ambiguous loss, a specific kind of trauma where the absence of a body or a final explanation prevents the grieving process from resolving. The answers they seek remain submerged somewhere in the crushing pressure and freezing darkness of the open ocean. Aviation is safer today because of the vulnerabilities exposed by this flight. But the true weight of this story rests with the 239 people who vanished, and the families who are still waiting for them to come home.